Here we have the minister.
Okay, wonderful. Minister, thank you for joining us. And just by way of introduction, my name is Alex Benjamin. I'm the Director of Public Affairs here at the European Jewish Association. We're delighted that you can take the time to talk to our many communities and participants from across Europe on such an important day, the 72nd anniversary of the independence of Israel. Minister Hanegbi, of course, needs little by way of introduction. He's currently the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, as well as the Minister of Regional Cooperation in Israel. Has held a number of portfolios as well under previous administrations, and whose parents, particularly his mother, was instrumental in the setting up and fighting for and standing up for Israel. So before I hand over to Tal Rabina, who will introduce the minister, our chairman, Rabbi Menachem Margolin, would like to welcome everyone to this online conference to celebrate Yom Haatzmaut. Rabbi Margolin, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. It is already over 3,300 years ago when the Jewish people became a nation around the Mount of Sinai that we all received a responsibility and tools to be a nation that cares for the entire world. It is already then that we were told that it won't be easy and we will go through challenges, but at the same time, if we will insist, we will succeed. It is already for 73 years that the state of Israel became not only the only Jewish state in the world that cares for the security of the entire Jewish people, but also became a source for pride for all of us in its development and its great contribution to humanity. And we all praise We all pray that each one of us will continue to see in its own personal contribution to the society the fulfillment, our responsibility and commitment, and do all what we can to be a source of light, value, and kindness. In the last weeks, we ran different conversations with the Jewish communities and Jewish organizations in Europe, individuals and groups, and I have to express and emphasize our great appreciation to the way Jewish communities deal with current situation and the mutual responsibilities among the community and outside the communities. But unfortunately, also during this time of the coronavirus, we do witness different kind of anti-Semitism all around Europe and anti-Israel, as it can be seen. And unfortunately, since for already a long time, anti-Semitism became an excuse, and actually it's expressed more as anti-Israel. We are so happy that Minister Hanegbi agreed to be with us and talk to us today. I would like to ask Tal Rabina, who is the director of the strategic of the European Jewish Association and the Israeli director of the Israeli Office of Europe-Israel Public Affairs, a person that himself is an example for its commitment for Israel and the Jewish people, to share with us his own thoughts and present and introduce the minister. Mr. Rabina, the floor is yours.
Of communities and organizations. And we are especially very happy and thankful to Minister Tzachi Hanegbi, as Alex introduced in the beginning, the Minister of Regional Cooperation, Agriculture and Rural Development. And all of us here in Europe and Israel are thanking you, Minister Hanegbi, for taking this time to speak with us in this very special and I might say different Yom Haatzmaut. For many friends from the various communities and organizations, Israel supporters and Israel lovers across Europe, whom might not have any forward opportunity to meet Minister Hanegbi. I will just say that Minister Hanegbi, Tzachi, is a prominent Israeli politician, a national security expert, and a member of the Likud party. He served as Minister of Justice, Minister of Internal Security, Minister of Intelligence and Nuclear Affairs, and a minister in the Prime Minister office supervising Israel's intelligence agencies, Mossad and Shin Bet. Minister Hanegbi, the floor is yours, and afterwards I hope you will have the time to answer our European friends' questions. Tzachi, please. Daphna, can we have Tzachi? Can we have Minister Hanegbi?
Do you hear me?
We can hear you, not seeing you yet. I hope it will be okay in a minute. Yeah, now we can see you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Tal. I thank you and I thank everybody for this initiative. I'm happy for it because, as you know, we are stuck in our homes. We don't have anything special to do. So having this Zoom meeting is the highlight of Yom Haatzmaut for me here. And all of you are connected to Israel. You have families in Israel. I'm sure you spend much time in Israel. So you know that Yom Haatzmaut, the Day of Independence in Israel, is not only a national opportunity for celebration. It has to do with every family feeling that this is a holiday that we are all part of, unlike Chagim that we celebrate about events that happened centuries ago and thousands of years ago. The independence of Israel is being achieved every day, literally. So we are all in a situation where we believe that this is our duty and responsibility to keep Israel strong and safe and independent. And our parents did it in their time. My mother and father both served in the Israeli underground, Lechi, Lochamei Chirut Israel, fighting against the British occupation, and believing that one day they will be able to live in a free state. Thank God it happened. I had the privilege of serving in the IDF as a paratrooper and fought in the Lebanon War. I have 4 boys. 3 of them already went to the army, had to go through wars in Gaza. And so it's a family event, not only a national one. This is where I'll stop my introduction because I don't have to lecture you about the Day of Independence. It's part of your life and roots and history. And I'll be very happy to elaborate on any issue that you would like me to relate to. Thank you.
Alex, will you take the floor and manage this talk, please?
With pleasure. Thank you for your opening remarks, Minister. It's really, really great to have you with us at such a difficult time for Israel in the middle of coronavirus, and also, you know, I mean, it's probably the first time since the state was formed that Independence Day is very much behind closed doors. So we appreciate you taking time out of your extremely busy ministerial schedule to come and talk to us and allow us to celebrate with you. Minister, we have a number of communities with us, and I was wondering, I would like to invite one of the communities in Europe, which was particularly hard hit, as I'm sure you've been following in Israel, was the Roman community and the community in Italy. We have the president of the Jewish community of Rome with us. So I'd like to invite Ruth to say a few words. And Ruth, if you have anything you'd like to ask the minister as well, now would be a good time. Ruth, I'm going to unmute you. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Chag Chag Ha'atzmaut Sameach lekulam. First of all, this is very important because it's a particular day today. It is important to remember that we must continue to be happy for this extraordinary miracle that Israel represents from 72 years. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you and to speak with the minister and to represent how is the situation now in Rome. That, as you know, is another moment for all of us, for our families, for our students, for the community as well. But at the same time, we are continuing to be Jews, proud and close to Israel as in the past, in a virtual, in a different way. I participate today at a fantastic party with the schools, with the students, together in a virtual way, but together and close one to the other. We heard yesterday the shofar from the synagogue and the prayer, and this is also very important to continue and maintain. I have not specific question at the moment. I know that Israel is moving its forces to sustain and ensure to all of us to continue our mission. And this is very important because the situation is very, very critical. No more than this I want to add at the moment. I thank you really, I appreciate your work also as EJA, and I'm proud to stay with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a question for Ruth, if it's possible. How many victims did the Jewish community suffer from in this corona crisis in Italy?
Almost 20 in all Italy, because we had the most of the died in Milano, as you can imagine. All the North Italy is suffering a lot. Till yesterday, the last one was died in Milano. In Rome and in south of Italy, center and south of Italy, the situation is a little bit better. We had more than 30 positive and 3 died in Rome. One of these was a young woman. Sorry. One of these, she was a young woman of 40 years old, and Alexia Pavoncello, Zichrono Livracha. And as you can imagine, it's a terrible situation. Also, because it's impossible to do funeral, to stay close with the families, and it's dramatic.
She was married in the same week.
Yes. For this, I'm sorry, but I wanted to remember her name.
Okay, Ruth, thank you for that. And yeah, we can only imagine how difficult it's been. I mean, here in Belgium, it's been bad, but we look at Italy and we know that it's how bad it could have been. And so thank you for your fortitude. Thank you for your strength. We're also joined, if I may, moving slightly higher up to a country which maybe hasn't been affected as much, but has certainly had a long and proud history of Judaism. We're joined by the president of the Jewish community of Vilnius, Simonas Gudavicius. Simonas, are you able to speak, sir?
Magazin und auch sonst bin ich ja Stellvertreter und ja, ein bisschen gut bei Antisemitismus. Ich habe jetzt eigentlich eine Videokonferenz mit so einer Organisation. Antisemitismus, Zukunft der Juden.
Okay, just bear with me 1 second, sorry. How are you, sir? Thank you.
I believe between people were talking.
Ich bin skeptisch. Ich meine, mit Corona weiß man nicht, aber
now I can talk.
Now you can talk, Simona. Sorry about that.
First of all, Minister and everyone else who is gathered here today, I would like to wish happy Yom Haatzmaut. You know, sometimes the distance is becoming bigger and bigger. people cannot go out from their homes to celebrate. But I think this year the celebration is special because even though we cannot be close one to another physically, we are becoming even stronger, closer one to another emotionally, and etc. You know, used to be the Jerusalem of North. So I just wanted to use the opportunity to connect not only one Jerusalem from the north to the real Jerusalem in Israel, but also to use this connection to connect everyone. Because we Jewish people, our strength is being, connected and being, one with another. And I hope, even though this Yom Haatzmaut is different than any other Yom Haatzmaut, we will go out from this year with new lessons, with new things that we learned. We are a small Jewish community. We used to be big, but we are a small Jewish community of 3,000 people. But nevertheless, I wanted to use this opportunity to say to the minister and to send it to all the people in Israel, that even though we live in Lithuania, we are in Lita, we always are with Israel, and Israel is always in the middle of our heart. We proudly sing the Hatikva today with the children in our Jewish school. We will sing it in the evening with the members of our Jewish community. We mourned about the soldiers yesterday. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to say how much I'm proud to be a part of this Zoom meeting, not as a meeting itself, but to be a part of our one mishpoche. My mother tongue is Yiddish, and I know there are not so many people that speak Yiddish, but I want to finish it with saying that seid gesund und stark und afzuloches alle sonim. All the viruses will disappear, but we Jewish people and also other good people will remain strong and will be only stronger after all these problems. So it was not a question, I just wanted to congratulate. So maybe I'm sorry if someone misunderstood the...
Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you for that, Simonas. If I may as well, briefly, I'm just going to do a very, very short sort of tour around Europe, and then we'll open up a discussion, because one of the things that I'm particularly interested in discussing as well is how communities across Europe have been dealing with anti-Semitism as a result of this virus. Because, Minister, I'm sure you're aware, there has been an uptick in some of the old libels against us as Jews, such as, in France there were images of a French minister poisoning a well. We've started to see in Hamburg, of all places, yellow stars on public transport and other such. But before we get to that, I'd just like to ask, if I may, Thomas Stern from Bratislava, one of the smaller countries in Europe, but an important one nonetheless, to give his perspective of how things have been in Bratislava, and countries like Slovakia and the Czech Republic have been at the forefront of containing the epidemic, and they seem to have done it well. Perhaps you can share your experience and what it's been like for the Jewish community there, Mr. Stern. Can you do that?
Yes, hello. Yom Haatzmaut Sameach lekulam, first of all. Hello, Minister, dear colleagues. Thank you for being part of this interesting group at this very important day for the whole Jewish community worldwide. In Slovakia, we are, in comparison with Italy, as I heard the sad news, we are comparatively well off. The government shut down the life, I think, in precaution measures in time. So we are not suffering higher numbers of casualties. Until now, it's like 15 people who died. Fortunately, despite of this sad number, because every casualty is a sad thing, but the community is well off. we were able to distribute in the very first week of the situation all the necessary masks and respirators to the needed people, so to the Holocaust survivors, ill and sick people, to shut them down at their homes. So all precautions, I think, which were possible to be done, were done in time. We are not over with the situation, but I think we are well prepared. But we will see in a few months' time how far we are and what if we were successful. And I wish to the Italian Jewish community and all the other communities who are here and not even attending this discussion, who are suffering now from the crisis, all the best. We are thinking of them in our prayers and on a daily basis. And we are a small community, but if there is a chance how to help, and I think this is a great basis coming out from this crisis, that the cooperation within the communities has to improve and increase. And this platform, I think, is a great beginning to do so in the future. So thank you for inviting me here to this event. As I said to the host, I have to leave earlier because the life is going on. I'm now going to a community meeting where we are preparing some other events, which are mostly online. Just to tell you, we are a community of 500 people, previously of a community of 15,000 before the war. One of the most important communities in Central Europe with the great yeshiva. This is all gone, but the Jewish life persists and is going on, and we are trying to maintain it and develop despite of the crisis. So thank you very much once again. Thank you, Minister, and all the greetings from Bratislava, or Pressburg, as it was called, to Israel and to all the other communities in Europe and worldwide. So all the best, and thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Stern, much appreciated. Minister Hanegbi, can I, before we go to other communities, it would be wonderful to hear from you as to what the situation is as of today in Israel, in terms of some of the countries, as we heard so far, like the Czech Republic, Austria, will come to Germany shortly, are slowly starting to come out of it. Others are still dealing with problems, tentatively coming out of lockdown. How are things in the country that we all love, our dear Israel? How are things there, Minister?
Thank you. Thank God the Prime Minister and the government made the right decisions at early stages. At the beginning of February, we found out that things are getting very problematic in various places, especially China. So we were the first country in the world to stop the flights from China and from Asia. Then we became the first country in the world banning flights to come from all over the world, including Europe and the United States. We were the first country in the world after China and after the Hubei region in China to make a decision that nobody can leave his home more than 100 meters. And thank God those decisions, even though they were harshly criticized at the beginning and were described as hysteria and paranoia and panic and unjustified, because they are practically ruining our economy and causing a lot of suffering to millions of people. Still, the result was very, very good. Now, it's the first day, really yesterday, that we have more people that recovered from Corona than people who are sick. Altogether, there are like 8,000 people who recovered and 7,000 people are still in various stages of Corona. Most of them, 97% of them, are very light symptoms or nothing at all. We have 99 people who are under problematic situation, unlike 139 several days ago. So altogether, not only the curve was flattened, but obviously we are seeing the end of this wave. And now the economy will be given more and more chances to get on its road once again. We open all the shops of the streets. We are opening schools next Sunday, only for young kids from 6 years old till 10. All the others are studying through Zoom and other such technologies. And I believe that we will have to wait and see what are the results of the fact that we opened the economy once again. And if we see in 2 weeks, 3 weeks that things are not changing and they are still on this very, very controlled situation, we will be able to consider other decisions. Altogether, we have 210 people died. It's of course tragic for each family and for each individual, but we have managed to contain the pandemic and we are very satisfied with the results so far.
Okay, and Minister as well, I'm sure it's a question a lot of us have, because I know personally I usually try and get to Israel over Pesach, and obviously that wasn't possible. When do you see likelihood of the airports opening up again and Israel sort of opening its doors to tourists like us?
That's an answer that cannot be given individually by Israel, because it has to do, of course, with all the other countries, with all the other airports, with other flights, companies. They say, I'm not an expert, but they say that this will be the last thing to be opened, is tourism and travel by air, because this is really the cause of the pandemic. The things were immediately spread all over the world due to the fact that people were traveling. So I cannot give you a prediction.
And if I may, just before move away from that topic, it was very, very interesting for me to see. I obviously had a bit more time on my hands, so I was able to check out Flight Tracker, and it did my heart good once when I was just looking over the map of South America, and I saw a couple of El Al planes coming into Lima to pick up people from presumably young Israelis who had gone out after the army to bring them all home. Has there been any uptick or any measurable cases coming out of that? The fact that you brought people back, and has there been any rise in coronavirus as a result of that, Minister?
Well, the first stages of the pandemic, in the first month, 40% of the people who were carriers of coronavirus were people who came from elsewhere to Israel, whether it were tourists or Israelis coming back home before we closed all the borders. Later on, nobody was able to go in. Besides the phenomenon that you are mentioning, Israel sent many flights, many El Al flights all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, the South America, and Asia, to bring back Israelis who got stuck there. We brought back more than 7,000 Israelis from all over the world. We made sure when they come, they will not go back home, but most of them spend 2 weeks in isolations, in hotels, places that were made especially for them. We haven't seen any special rise due to this exodus of Israelis coming back home.
Okay. Of course, Israel's in a fairly unique situation in that a lot of its borders are are closed. And I was wondering, Minister, if you could share with us just for a couple of minutes what the situation is up in the north and the south from a security perspective. Have things got quieter or have things got more tense, particularly up with Hezbollah on the northern front? I mean, how's the overall security situation in Israel right now?
Well, surrealistically, I can tell you that the only positive ramification of the coronavirus event is that the South became very peaceful. We used to have, as you know, ongoing confrontation with Hamas in Gaza for almost more than 2 years now, since March 2018. And this confrontation evaporated when all of us, including the people of Gaza, realized that they have to face a more problematic monster than the Israelis and the Zionists. So what we see in Gaza is even cooperation in various dimensions between us and the Palestinian Authority. We don't deal with Hamas directly, but through the Palestinian Authority and through the Egyptians, we are trying to help them to contain this pandemic, and so far they're very successful. In the north, we didn't have any big problems in this for a decade already, but we are continuing to make sure that when it comes to Syria, we are not going to witness the entrenchment and the activities of Iran there, trying to take over parts of Syria. So according to foreign sources, as you can read, every once in a while, there is an attack on Iranian post hold or convoy or infrastructure, altogether very successful. Sometimes we take responsibility, sometimes we are not commenting, but altogether this mission, this red line that we have made clear to everybody that it's vital for us, we are preserving it, and so far so good. That's the north.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. My colleague Tal Rabina would like to jump in. Tal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. Minister Hanegbi, as Rabbi Margoling emphasized before, during all this very harsh period of time of Corona, due to our mutual responsibility, we try to speak with all communities and organizations. And there are some questions that kept going on, and I would like you, if you please, refer to them. The anti-Semite and BDS movement are using the Corona to blame Israel for not taking care to the Palestinians and giving all kinds of allegations as if, quote, Israel is not explaining about the right behavior to its Arab citizens, etc. Hard to believe, but this is the reality a lot of our friends in Europe are facing. Would you like to refer to those allegations?
Yes, of course. Everybody knows it's lies. It has nothing to do with reality. And those who know it more than all are the Arabs living in Israel and surrounding Israel. We are treating the Arab population here with the way we treat Israel and as a whole, and the Jewish population, and the Christian one, and the Druze and the Bedouins. And we are investing a lot of our resources in making sure that the pandemic is not going to reach Arab cities. We had to close several neighborhoods in Haredic, ultra-Orthodox communities in Israel, like Bnei Brak and Bet Shemesh, and also in Arab villages like Al-Fahim and Deir al-Assad, because we had indications that there is some kind of outburst there. There's no distinction between Israelis and Arabs, and what's interesting is that there are many Arab doctors and many Arab nurses working in our hospitals in the special corona departments. They are much more than their percentage in the population, because this is one of their preferred occupation, is to study medicine and to work in our hospitals, and they do a great job, and they can testify to the fact that they don't treat Jews and Arabs differently. So this is all, of course, the same known labeling and slandering that we are used to through our history. When it comes to the PA authority territories in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, part of my ministry responsibility, the Ministry for Regional Cooperation, is of course to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority. We're doing it on a daily basis. So do the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Security and all the ministries. We are working shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian Authority, making sure that they are capable of defending themselves, because the virus doesn't know about ethnic origin or borders. So altogether, we see good results also from our cooperation with our Palestinian neighbors.
Thank you, Minister. Raised a couple of points there, which I'd like to follow up with a couple of communities on, if I may, and bring a couple of people in just to give their perspective. One is the idea of increased anti-Semitism as a result of this, and earlier on we spoke about the French minister in particular, who had an allegation, and there was a sort of horrific anti-Semitic cartoon of poisoning wells, etc., etc. So we have with us Michel Garfunkel from France. France has also suffered quite a lot in the coronavirus. Mr. Garfunkel, can you give us your perspective and perhaps deal with some of this, sort of latent anti-Semitism which has arisen in France because of the virus, and also just to give us a general update of how it's been in France. Mr. Garfunkel, the floor is yours.
I'm not quite sure there has been a rise in anti-Semitism because of the virus situation. First of all, I think that the French have been concerned by the illness, the pandemics proper. They have been concerned by a lot of technical problems that we had in the management of the pandemics in their country. Like, for instance, the fact that no sanitary masks have been available for the global population until now. We have promises that we will have masks within 2 weeks. But for the time being, it's quite unbelievable. But a country like France has not been able to provide every citizen with this kind of very simple device. There have been a few completely, loony statements by very marginal people, but globally, it seems that there has been less talk in France than in other countries. For instance, it is true that the Jewish community, especially the observant Jewish community, has been severely hit by the virus. But since observant Jews, the Haredi community in France, doesn't live in special neighborhood, really, like it is the case, for instance, in America or in London. The fact that many observant Jews went sick was not stressed, was not noticed, really. There has been some nasty comments, but very, very few of them regarding the fact that some of the people in charge of the health ministry or the global management of the pandemics happen to be Jewish, but I don't have a feeling, nor does anybody in France, that there is something like a virus, a COVID-19 related rise, upsurge, really in anti-Semitism in France. When the pandemics reached France, there has been not a nasty but a completely stupid observation by the French health minister that Mr. Netanyahu in Israel is wrong and to close the borders of the country because the virus doesn't pay attention to borders and so on. Now, which means something like 6 or 7 weeks later, this kind of statement, nobody dares to utter such a statement, since we know that it's important to close borders, to monitor entries into the country. And we know that globally, Israel has much better managed the situation than France. The level of mortality in Israel has taken in account, I mean, the difference of population in both countries. The level of mortality has been 12 times lower in Israel than in France. And people are aware of that. They know that there are countries that have managed well the pandemics, like Israel, Taiwan, and a few other countries, and countries that have had a lot of problems, like France. So that's the situation for the time being.
Thank you, sir. That's a great update, and we appreciate you being here. Minister, there's a question for you from a former leading executive member of Keren Hayesod, Johanna Aviv. So, Johanna, the floor is yours to ask Minister Hanegbi a question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hag Sameach to all of you. Thank you, Oliver, for joining me into this group, and Hag Sameach, Minister Hanegbi. In my present capacity as president of HaShomer HaChadash, I would like you to touch for a moment on how the challenges of the agricultural sector in Israel have been tackled. Clearly, I'm proud to say that HaShomer HaChadash has been a main player in tackling these challenges, and I'd like you to address maybe how do you plan to do this in the short term, medium term, and long term, and maybe exchange some ideas with some other countries that are in fact under the same major challenge due to the fact that there is a big lack of labor in the field.
Thank you. And I'm not sure everybody knows about the Shomer HaChadash, the new guard in Europe, but we know this organization for a long time. Amazing energy, innovation, idealism of young people who really made a change in many, many dimensions in Israel. And I was addressed by the founder of HaShomer HaChadash, Yoel Zilberman, at the beginning of this crisis. And he was aware of the fact that Israel's agriculture is going through a very difficult time due to the fact that many workers that used to be the majority of workers in Israel in agriculture, Palestinians and from Thailand, are not available anymore. We didn't let people come from Thailand for a while, and now it's been 3 months since we banned them from coming. And also Palestinians, we reduced the number of Palestinian workers working in Israel from 8,000 in agriculture to only 3,000. So we were short in labor. So what Yoel initiated, and I immediately embraced his initiative and led it in the Israeli bureaucracy, was to bring in volunteers from all over the country, young people, girls and boys who are not going to school, unfortunately, and cannot go to work because they are not working now. And many volunteers did rise up to the occasion. Around 8,000, even more people addressed the Shomer HaChadash application and made it possible for them to be connected to agriculture people who were in short of labor, and they practically saved the various branches of agriculture, especially the oranges that were on the trees, and without labor, they would just rot and fall and not be relevant to the Israeli economy and to the agriculture and to the livelihood of those families that grew them. So altogether, it's an amazing phenomenon that is praised by the Israeli press, and I was happy to cooperate with the Shomer HaChadash and to implement this great idea.
Great stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you, Minister. I think we should take advantage of your organization going forward. It has clearly a lot of energy, a lot of very amazing people, and a lot of supporters also from the rest of the world. So it's,
exactly.
I think.
I'm happy that everybody knows about it now.
Wonderful.
Amen. Thank you. Thanks for your question, Joanna, as well. Thank you for that. We're just talking about young people. We were just talking about agriculture, which brings me, if I may, neatly on to another one of our communities, because in Spain particularly, young people were affected. A lot of children were basically locked in for the guts of 5 to 6 weeks. And as well, talking about agriculture, Spain, when most people in Europe sit down and pick up an apple or some grapes or some other fruit, it comes from there, which has obviously had a huge detrimental effect on the economy there. So we're joined by Andy Argas, who's the Vice President of the community in Madrid. Mr. Argas, I was wondering if you could tell us how things have been in Spain and whether you have any remarks for the Minister. Mr. Argas, please take the floor. Let's see, Mr. Argas. Mr. Argas is not available, but we are, however, joined by David Hatchwell. David, are you able to answer the same question that I was just about to ask Mr. Argas? Can you tell us how it's been in Spain?
I could, but I would defer to Andy Argas because I saw him a few seconds ago, and let's give him one more second. If not, I'll be happy to respond as a former president of a community. Okay. And you might have a different. No, I don't see him answering.
I don't see him either. I'm sorry about that. David, please go ahead.
Sure. Well, listen. What has happened, unfortunately, in Spain over the last 7 weeks has been a collapse of the country in many different directions. Unfortunately, this has been a perfect storm of problems where you have an alignment of very, very poor government with very little management experience in terms of real life, not only in terms of crisis, because nobody was really geared to having the experience of something like this. But here we have a combination also of a radicalized socialist party and an extremely radicalized ultra-left party that has Chavista philosophies and communist revolutionary approaches, and that is financed by Iran. So that combination has proven to be deadly because instead of taking advice of what the World Health Organization was mentioning over weeks ahead, the government was thinking that it was a minor problem and basically put its whole agenda behind an objective. And obviously the country is suffering from it, the Jewish community is suffering from it because nobody was really expecting the disastrous consequences of this. Because of this, we have the highest death rate in the world de facto. Italy and us are leading that this horrible statistic. And the consequences of the economic crisis that are already here are tremendous. And we have a very, very dependent country from several industries that are very hard hit. Tourism is one of them, and that represents about 15% of our economy. And the other one that is very, very heavily hit also is automobile manufacturing and different car components, which is another 15% of the economy, which is also going to be a major sufferer of this crisis. No? So I would say that the country is up for very, very serious crisis. Probably we are already in the bandwagon of the biggest losers of this crisis. And unfortunately, the community is suffering from it. Now, what I can tell you is that here also you get the best senses of what happens in the Jewish world. There's been a lot of solidarity being shown by people. People have organized themselves, rallying around the leadership of the community. I'm a former leader of the community, but I can tell you that I'm extremely proud of what has been done, the level of care that has been provided to different people within the community. And unfortunately, the statistics of deaths has been very high, obviously among the older people.
Okay, David, thank you very much for that. I'm going to go back to the minister, if I may, because I understand that your time is short and we've almost taken up an hour of your time. So I'd just like to, if I may, Minister, come back to you on something. In the past, when we had the terror attacks in Europe and particularly in Brussels, it was clear that there was a lot of background cooperation with Israel in terms of intelligence and in terms of ways of dealing with the kind of new phenomenon. Europe once again has sort of been caught on the wrong foot when it came to this crisis. We've heard of some of the challenges and some of the ineptitude. We just heard from David. Has there been much reaching out from European countries to Israel in terms of science, in terms of cooperation, in terms of how it's been dealing with the crisis? Have there been, obviously you might not want to go into specific details, but have there been some back room or back channels open about advice or that kind of a thing, Minister?
Well, it's not a secret. It's a public knowledge. There is an ongoing dialogue between the Prime Minister Netanyahu and many leaders in Europe. I would say that some European leaders were introduced to the severity of this pandemic by their discussions with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The only one that I can name, because he made it public by himself, was Sebastian Kurz from Austria, who in an interview in Austria said that his telephone talk with Netanyahu made him recognize how problematic is the situation, and he took immediate measures due to the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is a friend of Sebastian, urged him not to wait even one more day. Sometimes there are conference calls, telephone calls or video conference of the Prime Minister with other leaders. And we are learning from the experience of especially Italy, Spain, United Kingdom, who were bearing the most tragic statistics that was mentioned before, and we share our knowledge with them. There is an ongoing cooperation in other levels, the levels of the doctor, the hospitals, the Ministry of Health, also research cooperation, because the Israeli Machon Weizmann, the Weizmann Institute, is a leading laboratory of research trying to find the cure, the vaccine, and also medicine. And he's doing it with the cooperation with other laboratories, mostly in Europe. United Kingdom is a leading one. And the Prime Minister instructed our researchers that it's not a race of a nation. It's not that the Israeli wants to have any ambition to win over our rivals. On the contrary, it's a race of working together. And it doesn't matter if we're number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, as long as humanity gets number 1 and gets the vaccine the sooner as possible. So in this environment, in this atmosphere, the cooperation, so far as I understand, is very beneficial, and hopefully all of us will benefit from it.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Before we go to a couple of more communities, because I'd like to come back on a particular challenge that you had in Israel and Bnei Brak, and I'd like to hear from a member of our advisory board and also the chairman of the forum in Antwerp, Regina Sluzny, in a minute, on her perspective on how things have been in Antwerp, and also then we'd like to hear from Berlin. I'll come to Berlin in a second, but our chairman, Rabbi Margolin, wanted to jump in once again. Rabbi Margolin, please.
Yeah, Minister Hanegbi, first of all, it's really great to see you here with us today, with all the celebration and all the challenges that no doubt also require your help and advice to the government. And just to get another opportunity to say welcome again to the new communities that joined this conversation. Minister, I would like to ask you, please. Indeed, we are going through now a huge challenge, but we all know that, God willing, this challenge will be behind us very soon. So everyone will go back to normal, not only about schools and everything, but also I would say the media focus and the political interest and anti-Semitism, everything will rise again, because right now it's just a cover that everyone just put all the energy to deal with the coronavirus. But there's no question that within a very short time, we'll need to handle again the different challenges that we dealt with until just 6 or 7 weeks ago. As you could hear now from different leaders of Jewish communities will suffer because of the economic situation. Speaking about financial and different financial aspects and different programs that no doubt will have to shut down. There's no question that many Jews who suffer from the economic situation won't be able to support Jewish communities, Jewish schools, synagogues, and different various projects. Now, I know that, of course, in Israel, there's a ministry of diaspora, heritage and diaspora, and Israel sees the communities in the diaspora as an important, not only partners, but as another important target to invest, to spend, to develop, to help. And I wanted to see with you, I don't know, I'm sure soon coalition discussions will go to its next level. I wanted to ask you, could we, the Jewish community in Europe, be assured that despite this great economic challenge for Israel, of course, as well, Israel will continue to look at the Jewish communities in the world as an important project, not as something that need to be done only in addition when we can, but as something which is fundamental for our future, for our common future, and make sure that Israel will continue, despite, again, the challenge, to do all what it started in order to support Jewish communities and Jewish projects in Europe and in the world.
Well, Rabbi Mergelin, I'm sure that you're aware of the place that Jewish diaspora has in the hearts of every Israeli, and especially, of course, every Israeli leader. We never see Israel as the country of Israelis. We see it as the heart of the Jewish world. Of course, we would love to see every Israeli, every Jewish family makes Aliyah and come to Israel, but we are aware of the fact that it's not going to happen very soon, that all of the diaspora will be gathered to the ancient land of Israel. So the way to make sure that being part of the Jewish people and making sure that the diaspora is part of Jewish people is not a slogan, but a real practical life, is that Israel, of course, is mobilizing its resources and its power and energy to help in time of need. Jewish diaspora helped Israel in early days when we were in need, and we wouldn't be able to survive for a long time without the help of Jews all over the world in wars and in time of economic crisis through the 3-4 decades of the country. So this is our time to help, and we are doing it. We will keep on doing it without any connection to the economy of Israel. The economy of Israel is also going, of course, to suffer from the results of this crisis, but I'm sure that the answer to your question is 100% positive.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great news. Great news, Minister. Of course, one of the fastest growing communities in Europe happens to be in Berlin, in Germany. So if I could bring in, just before we hear from Regina from the Antwerp perspective, and when we start bringing this to a close, Lala Suskind from the Berlin community. Lala, can you give us a sort of update from Berlin and anything you'd like to raise with the Minister? I'll try and unmute your audio. Lala,
do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you first of all for inviting me. It's a really great pleasure to be with all of you, and it's good, you know, we have the same sorrows and we have the same needs, I think. For the Jewish community here, it's for sure everything is shut down. There's no synagogue, and even it's very sad that if we had just a few funerals, but not of Corona, elderly people, it's very sad that only a few people are allowed to come to the funeral, but the good thing is that we are taking care, and that even the Jewish people here in Berlin are behaving according to the law, which is going on. We are trying, I mean, the community is trying. Once we have a monthly newspaper, and there are all the numbers where you were able to call if you need some help. And maybe you don't know, I'm the honorary president of WIZE, of the Women International Zionist Organization, and we have about 350 members here in Berlin. And for sure, we are taking care about them. Everybody has a number who is able to call. For sure, we are buying stuff for the elderly people and bringing it to them. So, which means we are still in contact, but anyhow, it's hurting. You know, elderly people who are on themselves, they're getting really, they're not the healthiest one anyhow, but no, they're really lonely. Even if you're calling them, even if you're coming once a week to bring some stuff, some food or whatsoever, it's horrifying. And I think, I don't agree with the guy who, sorry, I forgot your name, from France. I think that due to the coronavirus, the anti-Semitism raised, and not maybe in the public, because there is no public now, but in the internet. If you're going really and looking carefully, you see that a lot of, I don't know the word in English, Verschwörungstheorien, that the Jews invented or created the virus, and they spread it all over the world. And once a week, we have here in Berlin a demonstration, which is not allowed with so many people, but still the police can't do anything against it. That's a Hygienedemonstration, which means, and there you do find very left people, very right people, all this stuff, all the Reichsbürger, you know, all the people who hate Israel and who hate Jews. And this, because of the coronavirus, it raised here for sure. It's and that's really hurting, because you can't do too much now, because you can't go to the public. I mean, you can not do something publicly. Now we have, you know, that in Germany we do have the Al-Quds demonstration for sure, it will be allowed for 50 people. I have no idea what is going on. I'm in many organizations who are fighting anti-Semitism, and we'll do a little demonstration with 50 people too, and we're going to Facebook and Instagram and all the things, and YouTube. But anyhow, it's a pretty hard time. I think, and not only for Jews. I think everybody's infected by the virus, and but I do care more about my Jewish people here in Berlin or in Germany, and for sure I do care about Israel.
Thank you, Lola, and we wish you good luck in the weeks ahead. Of course, things are difficult. We've noticed that in Germany, in certain cities, there has been some rather horrible resurgence of anti-Semitism. So thank you for your intervention. Minister, I'm going to come back to you in 1 second with a question which has come through from a number of people. But before that, I'd just like to give the floor briefly, if I may, to Regina Sluzny, who is the chair of the Forum of Jews in Antwerp. Regina, can you give us an update, please, of how things have been there? And particularly as well, Regina, given that you have one of the largest Haredi communities in Europe, the particular challenges that you've had when it comes to the virus.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me and giving me some time to explain what's happening in Antwerp. We have a lot of problems because the synagogues are closed, the Stiebel, which we had a lot of them where the people were going to pray, and they can't go there. In the beginning, it was very difficult because it was hard for them to listen. They would go and the police would take them out there. But I must say, in a nice way, the governor did a lot of good things for us, helped us a lot. So it would be done in a calm way, not that all the world should hear about it. And what's happening is that they do their prayers on the balconies. So the Jewish Orthodox people live all together in the same, more or less same neighborhood. And or they stay on their windows and they open the window, or they go on the balcony and they say the prayers together. So they have the feeling that at least there is 10 people. But Pesach, it was a bit overdone because it was so hard, the prayers, that non-Jews started to complain. Not everybody. We had also non-Jewish people who wrote us mails that at least they tried to understand what's going on with the Jewish people and how they practice their faith. But it was not every time or every day it was pleasant because of the ones who didn't understand and who didn't want it. And it did come into the newspaper. And we had some work to go and to these non-Jewish people and explain why it happened and what it meant to us, which most of them understood. The big problem we're having now is that all these Orthodox people, they are without work. Those who worked, they have no income. And this is the big problem in Antwerp because we have a lot of Orthodox, they have no work, they stay at home, there's a lot of children. The apartments are not that big. So it's a double problem, no money coming in, a lot of children staying at home. They have to be looked after in the house, where before that they would go to cheder, to school, they wouldn't be at home. So life is completely different with this virus and very difficult. But we have also the guys who are helping out. We have a lot of young men. Hatzole is doing a fabulous work. They're going as soon as they get a telephone that somebody is down or just feeling down, or if they are ill or if they need somebody to talk, they go, they work 24/24. It's unbelievable the work they're doing. We are very proud of them. The big problem is the money now for the Haredim, that they don't have income. And we're trying to put up something for that, just starting this week to help them. And I hope it will be okay. So that's the main thing for Antwerp.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the update, Regina, and thank you for staying so strong up there. It's wonderful to see you. Minister Hanegbi, we're conscious that we're intruding on your birthday celebrations for the 72nd anniversary. There is a question that's come through from a number of people to me on the chat. So if you thought we were going to let you away without a tough question, I'm afraid we're going to have to disappoint you. One of the questions, actually more than one, that a couple of people have raised, Minister, in the past, there tends to be, in fact, not tends to be, it's proven by Fundamental Rights Agency reports and stuff that comes out of the EU here, that whenever something happens in Israel, for instance, Operation Cast Lead, that there tends to be an uptick in anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks on Jews in Europe. One of the things that is kind of worrying people, not necessarily because of the politics of it, but just because of what it means and what it could mean, particularly as some of the governments have come out strongly against it, notably France and if you like, the usual suspects. It's a question of annexation and what that's going to mean in terms of the EU-Israel relationship. Obviously, it's too early. I mean, the government isn't really properly in place as yet, but it's going to be a challenge that we'll probably have to deal with in Europe downstream, and communities will have to deal with in terms of that. So what's can you give us an update from the Israeli side, Minister, before we let you go as to the annexation question, as to what we can expect, and if there's any preparatory work being done to kind of get that old line of getting the retaliation in first, as they say. Minister, please.
Thank you. I got your questions. I'm still waiting for the tough question.
Well, that was it.
I understand. Yeah, I don't know how tough it is, but it is going to be a question that will make some kind of complexities, especially in Europe. And I'll let you know what I feel. As you know, and you've been to Israel, I'm sure, dozens of times, and so did probably everybody on the Zoom meeting today. Every Israeli is eager for peace, and we are paying the price of not having peace for so many decades, more than any other nation. So for 52 years since the Six-Day War, 53 years, we have not annexed any part of Judea and Samaria besides the half of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was united by the Labor government in 1967, right after the war. And since then, even though right-wing governments were in power for almost 40 years out of these 53 years, we never had a formal decision to annex those areas, even though they are the heart of our homeland, part of our roots, of our history, of the Bible. We have a biblical taboo on those areas, but still we understood the complexity and sensitivity of the unilateral annexation. But you know, you can only wait so many decades to have peace with our neighbors. And we are waiting for 53 years. We have, thank God, reached a peace accords with Egypt and Jordan, and it's working very well. And we believe that there is also a possibility of reaching an agreement with the Palestinians. We are trying to do it. There are various areas that we have that we will never be given away, even during historic compromise with the Palestinians. And it's really, that's the only area that is discussed now for annexation is this specific area. It's called the Jordan Valley, Bikat HaYarden, where there are almost no Palestinian population compared to the other cities in Judea and Samaria. And it's vital for Israel's security because it's the border between Israel and Jordan. No Israeli sane government, even if it will be led by the most extreme left, will agree to disassociate from the Jordan Valley and the Jordan River as a border that is essential for Israel's security. So this is the issue that was discussed lately with the American administration vis-a-vis the annexation possibility. And part of the plan of President Trump is that Israel will be able to annex areas like the Jordan Valley in due time, compared to, or in relation to other developments and events. So I believe that if the Palestinians will enter negotiation according to the Trump plan, or according to any plan, and will renew the negotiation with Israel, and will go back to the negotiation table, I am sure that there's not going to be any unilateral decision of Israel, of annexation or any such decision. But if the Palestinians will refuse to renew the negotiation with Israel, like they did since April 2014, already 6 years now, and there's not going to be any hope for any kind of dialogue, so Israel will have to make its own decisions. We are going to establish a unity government probably next week, headed by the two leaders of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu and the former chief of staff who is leading a center-left party named Kahol Lavan, blue and white. His name is Benny Gantz, as you know. And those two leaders made a decision to form a unity government to tackle the coronavirus crisis. So in the next several months, we are not going to deal with political issues of the annexation or peace and security, only to deal with this medical issue and of course the economical ramification of the crisis. And then in the coalition agreement, the Prime Minister is allowed to raise the issue of annexation vis-a-vis or in the context of the Trump initiative to the Knesset, to the parliament, and to the government. And only then, probably in July, this issue will be addressed by the Israeli Knesset. Of course, we will not be able to do it if the administration of President Trump will reject it or oppose it. And they said that they will oppose it if there will be any chance for negotiation with the Palestinians. And I personally believe that if the Palestinians are ready to discuss the future of those territories, it's much better than any unilateral initiative. But there's still a question mark whether the Palestinian Authority will rise to the occasion and come back to the negotiation table. This is where it stays.
Okay, Minister, thank you so much. You've been more than generous with your time. Before I let you go, our chairman, Rabbi Margolin, would like to wrap up this conversation because time flies. It's 1 hour coming up to an hour and a half. So really, you have been extremely generous with your time. Can I just say that it's been an honor to be able to have a dialogue with a true patriot such as yourself, someone who's been a leading and strong figure in Israeli politics as long as I can remember. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to to Rabbi Margolin to wrap this up, and just to thank you so much, Minister Hanegbi, for your time. Rabbi Margolin?
Yeah, I just wanted indeed to thank again the Minister for your time. And I also would like to, of course, thank each one of the participants who took the time to join us today. And also to thank the great team of the European Jewish Association and Europe-Israel Press Association who were working hard during this time, not only to make this call happen, but also during this time to assist Jewish communities in different projects. So I want to personally thank Alex, Ruth, Tal, Nir, David, Oliver, Dafna, Misha, Katya, Shaked, Tovi, Yossi, and Michelle. And thank you everyone for what you do. We are here at your disposal for anything you might think that we at the European Jewish Association could help you with. Please do not hesitate. We are here for you. We're more than happy to do all what we can to assist you during this time and after that as well. Thank you again, everyone, and much success to each one of you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I wish you a happy Yom Haatzmaut. Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Minister. Bye-bye. ברכה וחג שמח.
חג שמח לכולם.
Bye-bye.
Everybody soon. Bye, כל טוב.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for being in the live.
Be in touch, and we will be in touch also.
תודה רבה.
תודה.
תודה רבה, חג שמח.
חג שמח. חג שמח,
ביי ביי.
עם ישראל חי.
People who did not answer, we will try to do other events similar to this, and we'll hope to find ways to make sure everybody gets their questions answered. Unfortunately, sometimes the time is limited. Hello, Regina. Nice to see you. Schön, dich zu sehen.
Hi. Hey, Oliver.
Hello. Hey, Pedro. So,
Ich bin die alle.
Tschüss, mach's gut.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao a tutti.
A tutti, ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ci vediamo alla prossima.
Auf Wiedersehen, Diana. Hasta pronto. Alex, salutami la Kehila.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, Oliver.
Ciao, ciao.
Oliver, danke schön. Große Dankeschön.
Gerne, gerne, Diana.
Ich liebe dich und ich bete.
Hey, für uns alle.
Ja, jeden Tag.
Amen, amen.
Amen ve amen. Ciao.
Ciao. Все, я должна уходить.